You read the title right. This PC? Pointless. This laptop? Redundant. Apparently, all you need to replace them is one of these. And then you've just got to plug the dongle in, and then you need the screen, the extra cable for the keyboard, and well, it gets complicated. But what's the theory behind it? Who decided that a phone should be able to replace a PC? Well, lots of people have tried it. There was Continuum for Windows Phone, which went the way of the Windows Phone. There's Samsung DeX. There are unofficial solutions where you can just get launchers that look like desktop interfaces that'll work on any Android phone with a video output, Google. And there's even been hardware sold to make it possible, like the older Motorola Atrix laptop docks or newer Next docks. The idea being that phones are so powerful now and people upgrade those so often, why should they have to buy upfront and then upgrade over time PC hardware? Instead, you could just buy all the peripherals for a PC or like a laptop shell of a dock and then be able to have all your apps and logins and all the performance of your phone there still. So then that saves on landfill, like you're not going to be throwing away as many older PC parts, and lots of people don't upgrade their PCs for a long time. I'm sure you know someone who's still using a Windows 7 laptop, and that means they have a pretty degraded experience on a PC. If you just have it with your phone, everything stays up to date. And if you think about it, it's not really that crazy an idea when you compare the Geekbench results of a 2-year-old Android phone to a 5-year-old MacBook Pro. So is it actually any good? It, in this case, is Samsung DeX, because I've got a Samsung phone. And I'm not going to hold it against Samsung, but I don't get a taskbar, which I have removed a lot of things from my phone to debloat it, and so it could be related to that. It probably is, but the only error message I get was I got a taskbar once, and it said, like, the DeX UI is not responding. I clicked away from it, and then never saw the taskbar again, so it doesn't tell me what's missing. Luckily, though, even though a taskbar might seem kind of necessary, it's not, since all it should do is give you access to, like, quick access settings and let you open apps easier. And I don't need the quick access settings, and I can still open apps since the settings app was there on the desktop by default, so I just press that, go to my apps, and then open an app like that. So my experience is going to be less smooth than a normal one, but I'll still be able to run all the same software, and so whether it's useful or not shouldn't be any different without the taskbar. It will just be less easy to use for me, which is fine. So the first thing I tried was note-taking for this video. Can you do that? Yes. You could also do it without DeX. You can just plug a keyboard in, but it also works here. The only problem I experience with that is, first, it's the mobile app, so you don't get the whole like navigation UI to the side of it like you would on the desktop app, but also Shift Space is a keyboard shortcut for changing the language. So whenever I type I, because you're meant to capitalize it, I'm often still holding Shift by the time I press Space, which means that I end up switching between English and French, which isn't a problem because I'm still typing English words. It doesn't mess with the layout, but it does block that input, and so I often end up having to very purposefully take my finger off Shift before typing another character. But could I just change that? Oh yeah, I planned that rhetorical question, and yes, typing a question mark is also a problem. Could I just change that? Maybe. Normally you could, but when I go to the keyboard shortcuts menu and press it, nothing happens. So I assume the thing that's made my taskbar not work also makes that not work. But right, once you've got a video planned, the next step is to shoot. And yeah, that works fine in DeX. It just also would work fine without DeX, and you could just mirror the phone screen. It's still kind of nice. You can treat it like a real camera, how you would typically buy a separate monitor. Maybe you could buy a mini display and put it above your phone, but generally filming is not something where DeX is going to help me much. So instead, I'm going to dedicate this section to the other stuff you can do in DeX. Can you watch media and listen to music? Yep. Can you take pictures if you really wanted to? Yep. Can you do file browsing? Can you do researching? All, yep. I think something that's kind of important to mention when things like DeX are talked about for how powerful and versatile they are and stuff, they are only powerful in their ergonomics. It's nice being able to output from a phone at the correct monitor aspect ratio, so it takes up a whole display rather than being square or super tall or super wide. And it's really nice having keyboard shortcuts that make sense and generally having like windows that you can move around, but you can't actually do anything that you couldn't with just your phone. All the same apps are running, it's just running them in a nicer looking way. Obviously that's not all bad. Like I mentioned in my Apple Vision Pro video, having a better interface to fundamentally the same apps can have its benefits, both for productivity and just getting a nicer experience. But you're not going to be able to get anything fundamentally new going on unless you were to run a Linux or Windows virtual machine or something like that. So get subscribed if you're interested in that. But as for the normal experience, I can only really see light productivity and mobile games being useful, because it would be nice to be able to play Minecraft or Stardew Valley or another game that's on all the platforms on a display like it's from a PC or console, but it's only running on your phone, so you can take it around better. But with all of that in mind then, let's get to post-production. Can I edit a video, make the thumbnail, and upload it? Yeah. Is it fun? No. No DaVinci Resolve, no Real Premiere, obviously no Final Cut, no Real GIMP, though there does seem to be one that's like running in a VM, but not an official one, no Real Photoshop, no Affinity Photo. There's a lot of stuff missing. The only thing that is actually the same as on a proper desktop is uploading through the YouTube site, since you can just tell it to use desktop mode. But for the other stuff, let's get to it, even if only just because I'd like to get back to real software faster. Probably the closest thing to real video editing software on Android would be LumaFusion, which you've probably heard of before when people were talking about video editing on iPads, but that has come to Android too. It's just a separate purchase, and my college already has an Adobe license, so I'm going to be using Premiere Rush. Which, if I'm honest, isn't that bad? Like, there are weird things. The playhead is always centered, and space doesn't make things play. You have to click and hold to drag the sides of clips to change the size of them. There are no tooltips, and it's just obviously dumbed down, and it's not a desktop editor. But it functions, and from 5 meters away, or if you squint, it even kind of looks like how you'd expect video editing software to look. I mean, it's not fun, but it's also not a computer. I'm not expecting fun. I'm hoping and praying that it works as an alternative to a computer in case somehow I've just got my phone. And it is. And if you normally edit your videos in a fairly basic way, the only dead giveaway to viewers that it's edited on a phone is the fact that you can only export in 1080p. This footage is 4K and it was imported to Premiere Rush in 4K, but...
Scratch that, you can export in 4K just fine, it just didn't work the first try.
But why the scene change? Well, for the first time ever with any length of recording, my phone said it overheated and that I couldn't use the camera anymore. So, as does make sense really, running a desktop UI as well as your phone's normal UI does have a processor usage increase, which will probably decrease your battery and definitely make your phone run hotter, so you'll probably want to plug it in, but even then, the cooling will still be a problem, so maybe that's something to worry about. And another thing I had to worry about was the thumbnail. Could I make a thumbnail? Did I lie when I said that? No, but I, at least, couldn't find any image editor on Android that could make a thumbnail the way I normally make them, and I wasn't going to sacrifice all of the views for this video just to genuinely make the thumbnail on Android. It is nice, at least, though, that one seemingly advanced thing you can do, it's not actually that complicated, is I can still sync up my microphone that's recording to a separate SD card to my phone in Premiere Rush, and that's going to be fine. So at least that's something that I'm going to get to keep while still genuinely doing this all on the phone. Except there's been a change of plans. Because of numerous things like not being able to zoom into the timeline when there were longer videos when using DeX as opposed to a touchscreen with Premiere Rush, or my phone refusing to accept the SD card even though it used to in the past, this has been edited in Resolve. So I thought I should let you know. I still did go through the basic editing steps in Premiere Rush, but the final thing was edited properly. My goal here wasn't to push the limits of what's possible with DeX, because for someone like me who does have a computer, it's not worth putting tons and tons of effort into changing my workflow when I know for a fact that it'll be worse than what I've already got. I wanted to see what DeX could do as DeX was intended, minus the missing taskbar. And, well, it's not that useful for someone like me, if I'm being honest. At least without doing really hacky things like making virtual machines and doing a bunch of weird stuff, which if you want to see that, let me know. There's a Discord Matrix server in the comments. But for normal people, I can first see how it would be useful and also have basically already summarized it fine. It doesn't enable anything new, it just enables current things with a desktop interface. So if you want to play games, if you want to connect this to a TV, then you can do that, but you're not going to be able to do anything that's really like being on a desktop still. And to be fair to Samsung, they are careful to call it a desktop experience, not a desktop replacement, whereas a company like Apple's advertising definitely focuses on their non-PC products being able to replace computers. It's just something like the iPad legitimately can be pretty decent for creative workflows, whereas on Android, the tools just aren't there yet. Still, like I said earlier, let me know if you'd like me to try and get weird with it and try and get virtual machines working, or try other things, like try software development on here, because I think you could get VS Code working through the browser and things like that. I don't know. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Let me know what you thought. Subscribe if you'd like to, and bye.